Good evening and welcome. I am Amarachi Ubani. Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari challenges ministers designate to embrace teamwork to achieve his administration's promises as he opens a two-day retreat for the incoming cabinet members. Former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Diezani Alison Madueke, challenges the seizure of 40 million naira worth of jewelry from a home by the EFCC, says action violates her right to own property. Non-academic staff in public universities begin 5-day warning strike following the expiration of a 14-day ultimatum to the government over welfare issues. And Sudan's ousted President Omar al-Bashir appears in court at the start of a corruption trial. Police accuse him of receiving millions of dollars from Saudi Arabia.
On Business News tonight, the Central Bank of Nigeria vows to defend the country and her foreign reserves following a British court ruling giving a $9 billion arbitral award against the country.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria's senior women's national basketball team, the Tigers, return home after winning the FIBA AfroBasket in Senegal.
And from Abuja, former Deputy President of the Senate, Ike Kweremadu, returns to Nigeria from Germany, says those who attacked him in Nuremberg do not represent the interests of the Igbo people.
The president today began yet another phase in the process of setting up his new cabinets with the opening of a presidential inaugural retreat for the ministers designate. President Muhammadu Buhari believes that the 43 of them are key to the success of his administration and is challenging them to live up to the task ahead. Our correspondent, Gloria Mizoke, reports.
It's a two-day presidential retreat for ministers designate, federal permanent secretaries and top government officials at the State House.
Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari.
President Muhammadu Buhari, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, National Assembly leadership, National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, heads of agencies, amongst others, converged on the banquet hall. Before the closed-door session, President Muhammadu Buhari enumerated efforts made so far, while he challenged the newcomers to work hard.
As ministers, I am counting on you, together with advisors and Nigerians willing and able to contribute to build upon our roadmap of policies, programs, and projects that will lift the bulk of our people out of poverty and set them on the road to prosperity. You must open communications with your colleagues. Lack of communications lead to lack of cooperation and suboptimal performance.
The president also charged the appointees to efficiently monitor agencies under their supervision.
Honorable Ministers designate, you will be responsible for the development and implementation of policies, programs, and projects in your various ministries, departments, and agencies in line with government priorities.
Earlier on, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, re-echoed the need to remain accountable.
Let me remind us that the task of governance requires patience, dedication, and total commitment to the social contract that we have entered with the Nigerian people, especially in realization of the yearnings for quick delivery. All our work connect to the aspirations of the people. This retreat is aimed at preparing us for the success that I know we are all committed to achieving.
Participants have spent over 7 hours in day one of this retreat. Nigerians are hoping that this two-day presidential retreat would help bring about better strategies to implement policies, programs and projects of government in the next 4 years. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Federal High Court in Abuja today struck out a motion seeking to stop the president from inaugurating the 43 ministerial nominees. The plaintiff, Mr. Musa Babapanya, is alleged deliberate exclusion of an FCT indigent from the list. But Justice Taiwo, in his ruling, dismissed the application on the ground that the court lacks the power to grant an interim injunction where the applicant has failed to establish his legal rights in the matter. The applicant, who is also an indigent of Karu in the Federal Capital Territory, argued that the president's action was contrary to an appeal court judgment delivered on March 15, 2018. President Buhari is the first defendant, while the Attorney General of the Federation is the second. Let's get some insights into what the ministers designated have been discussing at the retreat with the president. Joining me now is a political analyst and lecturer at Bayes University, Abuja, Dr. Sam Ahmadi. He is in our studio in Abuja. Dr. Ahmadi, thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much.
The president has described the task before the incoming ministers as tough. Do you think it's as tough as the president says? Do you share this perspective with regard to the challenges of repositioning the country?
Well, I think Prit was right. It's going to be tough in many ways. We can see so many headwinds coming in. We see the economic crisis headwind coming in. We've seen political crisis headwind coming in. And of course, a certain degree of social disorientation. So this is going to be a tough 4 years, difficult because you're going to have perfect storm, politically, economically, and socially. We've seen, even with what happened in Germany a few days ago, we've seen also a greater degree of perhaps conflicts, crisis in the state. So the question now is, what would they take out from this conference? What template will government run? This is a good idea to bring them together, but it's not sufficient. This is not sufficient. This is not because the level of the interactions and the quality of the session will not produce the kind of ideas that you hope will be enough to deal with these challenges, transform the economy, realize the goal of a diverse economy and the goal of a country that is, like the VP said, where we have defeated grand corruption. So we are waiting to see if what document to come out of this, but I can guarantee you that government needs to build a stronger bureaucracy in the presidency to create the kind of ideas that will lead to transformation. It's not going to happen. Yes, some of the ministers are strong, some of them are experienced, some of them have been there before, but they have not all performed very well, and therefore the missing piece here is we need a solid document, solid roadmap, solid implementation strategy, and that should come from the presidency itself, not from the ministers.
I'm glad you mentioned the fact that some of them have been there before, and this administration has only 4 years to realize its promises and to deliver on them. What do you think these ministers should keep in mind as they approach their task and their set targets?
Sorry, can I have that question again?
You did mention that some of them have been in the positions that they're in before, although we don't know what portfolio each of the ministers have right now. The president is yet to make that announcement. But what do you think that these ministers should keep in mind, knowing they have only 4 years, in order to avoid some of the problems and the challenges they had in the past previous administration as they go forward into this one?
I think that 3 critical things I think they should have in mind. The first is they should realize that they are aides of the president. Under our constitution, the executive power is in the president. And so every minister, every head of the MDA is a presidential aide. They are exercising Section 5 power of the president in different dimensions. The second point they should bear in mind is that the quality of their achievement is going to be how integrated their policies and plans are. You know, linear reform policies don't produce value. We've seen from China. You have to take a whole system approach. So, for example, power would not work if you don't have good public sector reform, because the public investment side of power will require to be efficient, targeted, and managed in a way that produces value. So the second point is integrated approach. You should have a system approach to dealing with any line ministry. I think the third point is this: we need to have coherence in the sense that the villa, the villa, which is the presidency, the staffers, especially the chief of staff, should be able to not just design these policies, but have a process in which they coordinate performance by the ministers. So the ministers should have some kind of clear reporting procedure, so that the villa can actually keep on top of of project development. I give an example in the US. The whole idea of presidential politics is that you must have what I call the Office of Domestic Policy. You should warehouse critical skills in the presidency. Their job will be first to design policies, to transmit to the ministries, to monitor and have regular feedback with each ministry to make sure that government policies are not undercutting themselves. We've seen cases where these policies undercut themselves, either directly or in a very subtle way. They undermine what is happening in the other sector. So we need a bureaucracy of a sort in the presidency, a bureaucracy that's defined on policy competencies, warehouse them, synergize them, and direct how the ministry works. So the ministers should bear in mind they can't deliver their mandate if there's no integration with other ministries, and the buck stops with the presidency.
Couldn't have said it better, Dr. Ahmadi. Thank you again for speaking with us on the News at 10. A Second Republic lawmaker, Mr. Junaid Mohammed, has been speaking on the nation's security arrangements, which, according to him, leaves much to be desired. According to the former lawmaker who was on our program, Newsnight, the military hierarchy should be held accountable for all the security breaches because the buck stops at the table.
I regard it as badly managed. I regard it as very, very precarious. I believe if anything were to terminate the existence of this good country we call Nigeria, the first will be security. And if security is not handled, and I admit it has not been properly handled, then we have a serious problem. And for the security to be rationally handled, it has to be effectively handled by putting square pegs in square holes. If you put generals who may be there to make money, you heard what happened in Sokoto when 400 million naira is being called into account and the GOC is under house arrest. Now, if those who cannot maintain the safety and integrity of 400 million are given a whole division to command, and they have shown the true character the way we are being told, then we are in very serious trouble. Secondly, if you remember, I think a year or two ago, the soldiers in the northeast rebelled. In the process, in fact, shot and wounded their commanding officer, a whole GOC and a general. It shows you that we are not managing the security well. Thirdly, since the appointment of the current service chiefs, they have not been changed, even though they were overdue to be changed. I don't believe in an organization like Nigerian Army, in a country like Nigeria, any general can be regarded as indispensable. Nobody is indispensable. And when a general succeeds or fails, then we have a very serious problem if he feels he cannot be replaced. Because the idea that if you are in a post, you are there indefinitely is a very serious matter. And if you are to do the posting, the deployments and what have you, it has to be done on a rational basis in accordance with time-tested procedures, in accordance with the best procedures that are known globally. Now, these service chiefs have had their terms and tenures as service chiefs rolled over a number of times. In the process, they have destroyed at least 1 or 2 generations of officers who are due to take over from them. That is unfair, that is injustice, and I believe we are giving the current officer, service chiefs corps the impression that somehow Nigeria cannot do without them. I don't believe Nigeria can do without anybody. That the fact that the commander-in-chief is being served and that the service chief are serving at the pleasure of the commander-in-chief, who is also happens to be the head of the country, doesn't make his judgment infallible. No. Mistakes can be made, and mistakes have been made. Secondly, there is this very interesting relationship between field commanders, service chiefs, and the commander-in-chief himself. Because you must consider and, interact and find out what the soldiers and the officer corps are thinking and what they think, not only about what they're engaged in terms of combat, but what in fact they feel about the combat itself. If officers and men don't believe in the task, for example, fighting insurgency or banditry, you cannot motivate them enough. Secondly, if the morale is so low, then soldiers went to the extreme extent of assaulting their officers, then you know there is something fundamentally wrong. You now have to come back, withdraw, sit down, discuss the essence of the battle itself. Do they believe in what we are doing in the Northeast? Do they believe in what is happening in fighting the banditry in the Northwest? You know, do they believe in what we were doing, what we were engaged in, thank God, in the past, in the Niger Delta? These are very important points because we are doing it for the good of the country. And if they don't believe in the country, what do you do?
In part two, after the break, EFCC arraigned 2 persons before a federal high court in Abuja for alleged fraudulent receipt of 22.9 billion naira from the former National Security Advisor, Colonel Sambo Dasuki. Stay with us.